After studying this module, you shall be able to know the measures of happiness, understand the importance of happiness, and learn the ways of enhancing happiness. Introduction. Understanding and facilitating happiness and subjective well-being is the central objective of positive psychology. Happiness and well-being refer to both positive feelings such as joy or serenity and to positive states such as those involving flow or absorption. Happiness is generally understood as how much one likes the life one lives, or the degree to which one evaluates one's life positively. The main element in this definition is subjective evaluation or liking of life, also referred to as satisfaction with life. These words refer to a mental state. However, there is some ambiguity about the precise nature of that state. When used in a broad sense, the word happiness is synonymous with quality of life or well-being. Despite the fact that the set point for happiness is predominantly genetically determined, there is scope for developing skills and organizing our environments so that we are at or above our happiness set points. Evolution has ensured that we experience deep happiness under conditions that are good for the propagation of our genes. Mating, maintaining close kinship ties, developing deep friendships with a few people, maintaining cooperative alliances with larger groups, living in a safe and productive environment, developing skills for goal-oriented activities, etc. all produce happiness since they contribute to our survival. Measurement of happiness. Psychologists have been spending a lot of time analyzing the sources of human satisfaction for years. In their view, happiness or subjective well-being is the degree of how one views his or her life as a whole, or some particular domain of one's life. Psychologists believe that SWB or subjective well-being can be studied in part by asking people how they feel. One way to measure an individual's subjective well-being is through surveys, which may include single item or multiple item questions which ask the respondents to rate their state of well-being. An example of one of the most widely used measures of subjective well-being comes from responses to the standard happiness question in the World Values Survey, which asks people, taken all together, how happy would you say you are? Very happy, quite happy, not very happy, or not at all happy. Another one of the most commonly used single item scales is the life satisfaction scale. The standard life satisfaction question, which can be found in the Eurobarometer survey, asks individuals, on the whole, are you very satisfied, fairly satisfied, not very satisfied, or not satisfied with the life you lead? Some of the popular measures of happiness are Oxford Happiness Questionnaire. The Oxford Happiness Questionnaire was devised as a broad measure of personal happiness, mainly for in-house use in the Department of Experimental Psychology of the University of Oxford in the late 1980s. The development of the scale and some of its properties were reviewed by Eigel, Martin and Liu in 1995. The scale has been found to behave consistently, and other workers have reported its use both in the UK, in Spain and the USA. The OHI has also been used cross-culturally to compare students in Australia, Canada, the UK and USA. A Hebrew translation has been applied in Israel and it forms the basis of the Chinese happiness inventory, which has been used in Taiwan. The OHI follows the design and format of the Beck Depression Inventory, which provided, when reversed, a set of 20 multiple choice items relevant to subjective well-being. Further items were added to cover aspects of happiness which were not otherwise included, and 29 items were retained in the final scale. Each item was presented in 4 incremental levels, numbered from 0 to 3. For example, I am not particularly optimistic about the future. I feel optimistic about the future. I feel I have so much to look forward to. I feel that the future is overflowing with hope and promise. The Beck's Depression Inventory was designed for clinical application with the purpose of diagnosing manic and depressive states of mind. In non-clinical populations, few are manic or depressive, and the extremes of the corresponding OHI item alternatives are little used. In practice, normal participants mainly endorse one or other of the 2 central items. For a substantial minority of items, the mean scores are less than or do not comfortably exceed their corresponding standard deviations. This suggests that answers to these items may be uniformly rather than normally distributed and might not be making their full contribution to the measurement of happiness. The statistical properties of the individual items would be improved if respondents could select answers from a wider range. The multiple choice format also necessitates a bulky scale that can only be presented as a stand-alone instrument. An alternative scale, the Oxford Happiness Questionnaire or OHQ, has been devised, which consists of single items that can be answered on a 6-point Likert scale. These items may easily be incorporated into larger questionnaires in random order, and the opportunity has also been taken of reversing about half of the items. These changes should reduce the probability of contextual and compliant answering. Satisfaction with life scale. The SWLS is a short 5-item instrument designed to measure global cognitive judgments of satisfaction with one's life. The scale usually requires only about 1 minute of the respondent's time. The SWLS requires a person to use a 7-item scale to state their agreement or disagreement, where 1 results in strongly agree, 4 neither agree nor disagree, 7 strongly agree, with 5 statements about their life. PANAS Scale. The positive affect and negative affect scales are brief and easy to administer. There are 2 10-item mood scales that comprise the positive and negative affect schedule. The scales are shown to be highly internally consistent and largely uncorrelated. PANAS is a 20-item questionnaire which uses a 5-point Likert scale. 1 reflects very slightly or not at all, while 5 reflects extremely. The Subjective Happiness Scale. The Subjective Happiness Scale, or SHS, is a 4-item scale measuring global subjective happiness. The scale requires participants to use absolute ratings to characterize themselves as happy or unhappy individuals. It also asks to what extent they identify themselves with descriptions of happy and unhappy individuals. Among multiple item scales, one of the most prominent measures of an individual's subjective well-being is the General Health Questionnaire. In the British Household Panel Survey, the GHQ focuses on two major areas: the respondents' inability to carry out normal functions, such as the ability to make decisions about things or enjoy normal day-to-day activities, and the appearance of new and distressing phenomena such as depression and loss of confidence. Early survey instruments usually posed a single question about people's happiness or life satisfaction. Psychometric evaluations of these simple scales showed that they possess a degree of validity. However, a multi-method battery is recommended. The use of multiple methods also allows researchers to understand how people construct subjective well-being judgments. Importance of happiness. Numerous studies show that happy individuals are successful across multiple life domains, including marriage, friendship, income, work performance, and health. Researchers argue that the happiness-success link exists not only because success makes people happy, but also because positive affect leads to success. Cross-sectional, longitudinal, and experimental evidence are documented to test this model. The results reveal that happiness is associated with and precedes numerous successful outcomes. Furthermore, the evidence suggests that positive affect may be the cause of many of the desirable characteristics, resources, and successes correlated with happiness. Happiness is highly valued in the present-day society. Not only do people aim at happiness in their own life, but there is also growing support for the idea that we care for the happiness of other people and that governments should aim at creating greater happiness for a greater number of citizens. This classic philosophy is not only more accepted these days, but also more practicable, now that scientific research provides more view on the conditions for happiness. Happiness enhancement. Fava et al. In 1998 and Liker et al. In 1980 have all developed and evaluated community-based training programs for enhancing happiness, which include elements of the overall set of happiness enhancement strategies. Seligman has developed a highly effective program to promote optimism in children and adults. Seligman began his career studying depression, stress, and anxiety. From his work in these areas, he discovered that the optimistic explanatory style acted as a protective factor against the development of depression. He developed a curriculum for school children to inculcate an optimistic explanatory style in them. The program, known as the Penn Resilience Program or the PRP, works on the idea that inculcating optimism in young people might serve to protect them from developing depression. Seligman provides the acronym PERMA to summarize positive psychology's findings. According to him, humans seem happiest when they have pleasure, engagement, relationships, meaning, and accomplishments. Fordyce in 1977 and 1983 published several studies in which he evaluated a program designed to boost people's happiness. The program is based on the idea that people's subjective well-being can be increased if they learn to imitate the traits of happy people. Characteristics such as being organized, keeping busy, spending more time socializing, developing a positive outlook, and working on a healthy personality. The 12 happiness enhancing strategies. Counting your blessings. Expressing gratitude for what you have or conveying your appreciation to one or more individuals whom you have never properly thanked. Cultivating optimism. Keeping a journal in which you imagine and write about the best possible future for yourself, or practicing to look at the bright side of every situation. Avoiding overthinking and social comparison, using strategies to cut down on how often you dwell on your problems and compare yourself to others. Practicing acts of kindness, doing good things for others, whether friends or strangers, either directly or anonymously, either spontaneously or planned. Nurturing relationships. Picking a relationship in need of strengthening and investing time and energy in healing, cultivating, affirming, and enjoying it. Doing more activities that truly engage you. Increasing the number of experiences at home and work which are challenging and absorbing. Replaying and savoring life's joys. Paying close attention and going over life's momentary pleasures and wonders through thinking, writing, or sharing with another. Committing to your goals. Picking significant goals that are meaningful to you and devoting time and efforts to pursuing them. Developing strategies for coping. Practicing ways to endure or surmount a recent stress, hardship, or trauma. Learning to forgive. Keeping a journal or writing a letter in which you work on letting go of anger and resentment towards one or more individuals who have hurt you. Practicing religion and spirituality. Becoming more involved in places of worship or reading and pondering spiritually themed books. Taking care of your body. Engaging in physical activity, meditating and smiling and laughing. Indian perspective on happiness. There is a materialistic view in the Indian tradition according to which fulfillment of desires leads to pleasure. This is the philosophy or charvaka, which reflects the hedonistic perspective. A second perspective, which is quite opposite to this, is based in transcendental view of reality, which is the ideal upheld by the Indian tradition as the ultimate in well-being. Happiness and well-being, according to this view, is subjective. This view is rooted in universal vision, which aims for the well-being of everyone in the universe. A third perspective that lies in between the hedonistic and the transcendental perspectives is the collectivistic perspective. Much of the notions of quality of life and well-being in the Indian culture today can be traced back to Vedic and Upanishadic periods. They defined the ultimate truth with reference to that which is permanent and everlasting as compared to that which is impermanent and transient. To realize the Atman and to know that Atman and Brahman are the same was considered as the path to liberation or moksha. The Bhagavad Gita asks us to remain always in sattva. This means to be predominated by the principle of illumination and transparency. Depending on one's evolutionary status, people may consider pursuit of desires, that is calm, pursuit of wealth, that is earth, pursuit of values, that is dharma, and pursuit of liberation, that is moksha, as the main aim of their life. Therefore, well-being and good life were to be achieved more in terms of restraint and detachment from bodily need fulfillment rather than indulgence and striving for need fulfillment. Future directions for happiness research. As noted above, there is abundance of research in happiness. However, more attention should be paid to developmental processes involving subjective well-being. In particular, the link between positive affectivity in infancy and childhood and subjective well-being in adulthood should be explored. Similarly, a longitudinal approach should be taken in an investigation of society and culture. Specifically, the way in which changes in macro systems, example, political, economic and cultural, have an impact on people's well-being should be examined more carefully to create the happy societies. Summary. Understanding and facilitating happiness and subjective well-being is the central objective of positive psychology. When used in a broad sense, the word happiness is synonymous with quality of life or well-being. Happiness or subjective well-being is conceived to be the degree of how one views one's life as a whole, or some particular domain of one's life as favorable. Various ways to measure an individual's subjective well-being is through surveys, single-item scales, and multi-item scales. The use of multiple methods also allows researchers to understand how people construct subjective well-being judgments. Numerous studies show that happy individuals are successful across multiple life domains, including marriage, friendship, income, work performance, and health. Not only do people aim at happiness in their own life, but there is also growing support for the idea that we care for the happiness of other people and that governments should aim at creating greater happiness for a greater number of citizens. Fava et al. And Liker et al. Have all developed and evaluated community-based training programs for enhancing happiness, which include elements of the overall set of happiness enhancement strategies. Fordyce published several studies in which he evaluated a program designed to boost people's happiness. Seligman has designed many interventions to inculcate optimistic explanatory style to enhance happiness. More attention should be paid to developmental processes involving subjective well-being. In particular, given recent advances in infant or child temperament research, the link between positive affectivity in infancy and childhood and subjective well-being in adulthood should be explored. According to the Indian perspective, well-being and good life were to be achieved more in terms of restraint and detachment from bodily need fulfillment rather than indulgence and striving for need fulfillment.